Hi, a film I was interested to watch that I finally got round to was Coming to America, the sequel to Coming to America, available on Amazon Prime and starring Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, and many of the other actors from the original 1988 film. It continues the storyline from the first film, released many years ago, which had Prince Akeem of the wealthy African nation of Zamunda traveling to New York with his companion Semi to search for a wife that he could choose to marry rather than be put into an arranged marriage, and pose on the way as a lowly fast food worker so that she can get to know him for who he really is and not just for his titles and wealth. The new film picks up in the present day. Akeem, on the death of his father, ascends to the throne and has three young daughters to whom he dotes on and is grooming them for great position. However, he receives word that he has an illegitimate eldest son, the result of a one night stand during his visit to New York. And so he, along with his family, travel to Zamunda and are groomed for the throne, while also having to fend off the interests of the rival nation of Nexdoria, led by a flamboyant general played by Wesley Snipes. I rewatched the first film a few weeks ago, having not seen it since 1994, and I found it to be entirely enjoyable, um, relatively witty. It hasn't dated particularly poorly in any way that I'd noticed, and it's really quite enjoyable. So I was interested to see how the new film was going to measure up. And yes, it's on pretty much the same level I found. I wouldn't call it any kind of masterpiece, but it's well produced, well made. I thought Eddie Murphy, I think in the lead role, I thought was particularly good. Akeem is a very likable character. He's warm, intelligent, somewhat naive, but very good hearted. And he wants to be a good king. He wants to honor his family, but also advance Zamunda into the 21st century. And the way he dotes on his daughters, training them for high position, and eventually exceeding that they should take a much more prominent role in the future of Zamunda than he had expected. It shows that the film is quite forward-looking, more so than you might expect. The supporting casts are generally quite enjoyable. Leslie Jones is she hits the right level of obnoxiousness. I think she can be quite a grating presence. Here it's dialed down somewhat, and the character isn't supposed to be especially likable, and she smooths out over the course of the film. Arsenio Hall doesn't get a huge amount to do, but is a entertaining presence. Wesley Snipes, I thought, was particularly good. He hasn't really been in too many major movies since he, I believe, spent time in prison for tax evasion. Um, but this is sort of part of a comeback after Dolomite is My Name, which is the previous film by director Craig Brewer and also starred Eddie Murphy. Um, it's more of a contemporary film than I was expecting. It's not just resting on the laurels of the first film, although it does reprise elements of it again. There's a particularly effective scene, I think, that combines reused footage from the first film with de-aged Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall for a new scene. And the de-aging, which is only used briefly and very carefully and judiciously, I thought worked extremely well and shows Brewer's skill as a director as well as giving the performers time to let the material breathe. Um, but overall, yes, it's enjoyable. It's not any kind of masterpiece, but it probably does rely on knowledge of the original and certainly some memory of it. But with those caveats in mind, it's an enjoyable 2 hours of entertainment.